Hey guys, welcome back. Unpopular opinions in Pokemon number 10. If you haven't already, check out Sacari on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description. He's the creator of this thread on efour that we'll be reading through. I'll give my opinions on these. As always, if you have any of your own, feel free to leave them in the comments. If there's anything that really rustles your jimmies, put that down there too. See if anyone gets worked up. I know there's some of these that often create arguments, so I wouldn't be surprised if it upsets you. All right, King Boo 64 starting out with a big one here, saying Evolutions is the worst set ever, even worse than base set 2. Crimson Invasion is better than Evolutions. Steam Siege is better than Evolutions. So I would actually prefer Crimson Invasion or Steam Siege over Evolutions, at least for the most part. Not really a big fan of reused artwork or reprints in general. I get that Evolutions is kind of a good way to go back and open the base set cards. Maybe not necessarily the best way, but certainly the most affordable way to do so. So there's a lot of people that like it for that reason. I don't think it's necessarily a bad set, but yeah, I don't know. Base set 2, same with all of that stuff. I'd rather see a new set with all new artwork than anything that's reprint. So I kind of agree with this, but I can see why a lot of people would not. All right. Parker Mr. Parker says the card design on e-reader cards is better. I kind of agree. I don't know how much of that is the fact that it's different. I tend to like things that are different and unusual, and that's definitely the strangest outlier of a e-reader or card design that they've ever come out with. It'd be really cool if they did something similar with the like a throwback e-reader style, but with the amiibo feature and integrated it into the actual games. Would be insane. That would obviously be much more expensive, but I don't know. They've done it with the Animal Crossing cards, so I can't see why they couldn't make some kind of specialty set or product that could take place in the games or whatever. Would be very cool. All right, Quador says. All right, so this is a response, and then he also has some unpopular opinions here. Collecting duplicated cards, playsets of 4, full binder pages of 9, or entire binders full is stupid. So the playsets of 4, if you're going to actually use them to play and you're going to pull them out of the binder and you have them all sleeved the same and you want to like mix and match old decks or something like that, or even if you keep playsets of 4 for modern for your decks, I can completely understand that. Maybe there's a card that you really like, full binder pages of or entire binders full. Just as sort of a fun side thing, whenever I get a Mawile card, or typically when people get Mawile cards, they'll give me the Mawiles. They're usually not very expensive, but it's cool to fill a binder with those. Just a cool side thing to see how many I actually end up acquiring. Or if I make a large Troll and Toad order, sometimes I'll tack some Mawiles on there, just for fun. Like 30-cent Mawiles, why not? If you sell more than you buy, you're not a collector. Yeah, kind of agree. I think maybe this has an exception if you have like a store or anything like that. I would judge it more based on the actual size of the collection itself rather than just a comparison between buying and selling. But at the same time, maybe it should be against like your actual budget. Not sure. This is an interesting one. There's certainly a point where if you're just only selling, then you're not really collecting. But English and Japanese are overrated in comparison to the other 12 languages. I'm going to disagree with this. And I guess the market kind of does as well. Japanese being the original, so there's the appeal there. English being, I guess, the world's language or the language of money. And in particular what most people want to collect. So if there's money involved, if it's the primary language, universally kind of accepted as such. And usually the most expensive cards, the other 12 languages, unless you speak those languages, I can kind of see the appeal. But even the French Canadians in Canada, most of them do not want French cards. They want the English cards. So, I mean, maybe that's overrated for that reason, or maybe they just want the market for English is there. So I can only imagine how hard it would be to complete some of these modern sets in a different language when you can't just go buy the ones that you're missing or anything like that. You'd have to open the product, which is, as most people probably know at this point, pretty impossible to do, at least without taking a mortgage out for it. Just the amount of chase cards is unreal. All right, all eras and generations of Pokemon are equally as good, and the WotC era and Generation 1 and 2 are only so popular due to being the first and giving a nostalgic feeling. Yeah, so I would agree to an extent. I wouldn't say equally as good. You can certainly have a preference for one over the other, but I think all of them should be appreciated. They're all good. Not necessarily equally as good, but all good. And yeah, so with the boom in the WotC era, a lot of people have the nostalgia for that, so then that's what they start out with, and that's why they're the most popular. You'll see a lot of younger collectors that don't care about it as much because they went around, but at the same time there's historical aspects of it that are always going to be there, being the first set, or the first sets, I guess, if we're referring to WotC. Gengar Sayama says Dragonite is better than Charizard. I'd probably agree. I think I like Dragonair better than Dragonite, and would say that that's better than these two, but I don't know. Maybe just the hype, the extra hype that Charizard has. I'd go with the Dragonite just being the underdog. Neither of them are necessarily my favorite Pokemon, or amongst my favorite, so I could live without them. Nish says full arts are generally hugely overrated and standard layout cards are better. There are a ton of exceptions, but 8 times out of 10 I prefer the standard layout. I would agree that there are a lot of full arts that are boring, Sun and Moon especially, and where there's these full art versions end up with a hyper rare version as well. It's basically just the same card, and then they come out with a Hidden Fates or something that is just the same card with a different color palette, usually very basic design, which isn't necessarily bad, but I think we've just seen a little bit too much of it, and I like the direction that the full arts are going in Sword and Shield. A little bit more going on in the background, a little bit more flashy, and not just a solid color with a little pattern in the back. Gus, with the Dragonair actually, says University Magikarp is an ugly card, is only cool because of its rarity. I wouldn't say necessarily that it's an ugly card, but it certainly doesn't stand out, and definitely cool because of rarity more so than anything else. Admiral says Shining Charizard is a really ugly card. This is like the 20th time we've seen this, so I would say that this is maybe a popular opinion. People don't like Shining Charizard. I know there's some people complaining that it wasn't going to be in the 25th anniversary set. Maybe that's why. People don't like Shining Charizard. I find it's great. I like that it's a different pose than usual. But apparently people don't want to see the feet or backside of the Charizard. They just want to see the face breathing fire in the same pose every time. Ricky Bobby says Legendary set is completely overrated and ugly. I would kind of agree. It's neat that that's where the reverse holo started, and that they've continued on to this day. So there's a little bit of at least a difference there. It's not just entirely reprint. It's different versions of the same cards. I have Zard fatigue. Yeah, I think that happens, especially when we get a few sets in a row that have Charizards, Chase Charizards. Hopefully those back off a little bit so we can have some breathing room, let some other Pokemon shine. I know a lot of people don't like that because if they only collect Charizards or they only want stuff with Charizards in it. So there's got to be a happy medium there. Sun and Moon had some great cards and sets. Besides Shiny Star V, there's nothing in Sword and Shield that comes close to many Sun and Moon sets. It's also gets props for giving love to Psyduck, who's been one of the most featured Pokemon ever in the animated series, yet still does not have Shining. Well, Ducklet has one already. So I'm sure there's the Shining sets do pretty good, so I would imagine that you'll get a Psyduck eventually. The last Shining set that we got was featuring mostly the new Sword and Shield Pokemon, so maybe eventually Psyduck will get one. Wouldn't surprise me. Maybe they're just saving that for a later date. Squirtle 1000 says, this is probably a very unpopular opinion. I don't like signatures on cards. In fact, I consider a signature on a card to be damage on the card. Here's why. So I would agree that in my main set, where I'm collecting master sets, I wouldn't want a signature on there. But it would be very cool to have additional cards that are signed and maybe in a different set, different binder. Just mostly for personal reasons, or kind of the meaningfulness of having that signed, preferably in person by the artist. Buying it on eBay or whatever that somebody else got signed, especially recently where a lot of the time they have to be personalized to discourage reselling. So then you get a 2 trainer or 2 Ash or whatever on the card itself, so people can flip them. I don't know, not for me. Right. The card is much more than its illustration. Someone, or perhaps a group of people, came up with the Pokemon's attacks, the Pokedex entry, and so on. These individuals were the ones that actually created the card out of an illustration. Where are their signatures? Why is it okay for the illustrator to write over these other areas of the card? So it'd be kind of interesting to know for sure if they're designing the card and then matching it up to an artwork, or if the artwork's created. There's probably a bank of artwork, I would imagine, that they have that they create the card with, and maybe the attacks. Usually the attacks have something to do with the artwork, so maybe the people that are designing the card grab the artwork that they want. I'm sure there's cases where it's the other way around, but for the most part, it's probably that, just a vault of artwork. So it'd be hard to get it signed. You're going to get it signed by all the people that were creating the card, and then maybe you get the back of the card signed by whoever designed that. You'd have signatures all over it. It'd be pretty wild. Some of my most cherished childhood memories are from when I played the Pokemon TCG at my local Wizards of the Coast store at the mall. I won a few tournaments with my Typhlosion Meg Cargo deck during the Neo era, so when I look at T17, I appreciate the card for more than its illustration. Looking at it transports me back to when I was a kid. I want to see the Pokemon power on the attack. I don't want the artist to write all over that. I can appreciate the artist's work by simply admiring the illustration itself. Anyway, just my opinion. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just like there's anything wrong with collecting the way that you want to collect. If you want a certain condition, if you want a piece of plastic that says that the condition is a certain condition, by all means, go ahead. As long as you're enjoying it and it's what you want to collect, there's no one that should tell you that you should or shouldn't want the signature on a card, especially if it's not something that you can get done yourself. There's way less, it'd be less meaningful if you're just buying it already signed. And it wouldn't even be something that would entice me to purchase it anyway. Preferably in person, but even if there was some way that you can get them to send you a signed card directly from the artist, that'd be amazing. Next, Mr. Parker is back and says, first edition base set and unlimited base set are the worst sets. I think Shadowless is okay, but it's not something I would put my time into either. I have bad news for you. First edition is the same as Shadowless. It just has a stamp on it, so I guess maybe you just really hate stamps. Very small stamp, makes very little difference to most people, other than the fact that it is the first, so it's more iconic that way. Shadowless being leftover that wasn't stamped, and then Unlimited being just basically a little bit different in color, the shadow around the border, the different date at the bottom. I don't know. I think you just don't like base set, which is fine. But maybe just say that, not pick apart different versions of base set, which are all very similar. Shiny Cards says, gold stars are overpriced. I know that they're scarce, but for me, nostalgia is stronger than rarity. Pokemon was apparently dying off in the gold star era, so how many people actually have nostalgia for them? I would take a load of base and Neo WotC Hollows over them all day long for the same price. So, again, that's collect what you like. If you don't like gold stars, then don't collect gold stars. Everyone goes on about the rarity of gold stars being, most of them, I think, being 1 in 3 boxes to get a gold star, which by today's standard is not that rare. People seem to, for not that rare in terms of pulling one individual card, because usually there aren't that many gold stars in a set. Where now, if we have secret rares and stuff like that, it could be like 1 in 700 packs to get a particular one. If there's only 3 gold stars, then 1 in 9 boxes. I guess if you're not getting duplicates, it's hard to do that math right off the top of your head. But difficult, yes. And then also if there was lower print runs, so there could be less of them. And it could be just that Pokemon was underrated at the time, and maybe the gold stars were better or more desirable than they should have been. And it was more the era that did that to them, which would make a lot of sense. And now people are going to, after they collect what they were nostalgic for, typically when they get back into the hobby, they'll go for other things that they missed out on, and a lot of people would have missed out on this era, and so maybe that cancels out the nostalgic aspect of it. Hard to say. Here we go. The next one is getting right into that. Muck says, nostalgia is overrated, hear me out. Basically, everyone of us initially came back because of nostalgia, but there are only so many cards you have actual nostalgia for. For me, it's based through Team Rocket. For others, it might be based to EX or even DP. However, there comes a point where there are no more nostalgic cards to collect for you, and then what? To sustain the hobby as it is today in long term, a major chunk of the community has to be willing to expand their horizons and appreciate the cards for what they are, mainly their history and art, perhaps also playability aspects. Maybe it isn't for everyone, but the single best thing in the hobby for me personally is learning about cards I didn't know before. No matter if vintage or modern, that's what keeps me going. If I would have only collected what I already was familiar with, my collection would be 5% of what it is now, both in terms of volume and in uniqueness, interestingness. I don't know if that's a word, but we're going to say it. We're going to use it. I would 100% agree. A large part, when I first got back in, it was certainly the WotC stuff that I was looking at initially. That's what I had in my binder, my childhood binder. And that's kind of what I focused on initially, along with some of the modern, because the reason I got back into the hobby was it was early XY, and I was playing PTCGO just on a whim. I found out that you could play the card game online, so downloaded it, played it with my cousin, and then found my old binder, started buying some new stuff, some new booster boxes, and also some older cards at the same time, some singles. I think primarily from eBay and Troll and Toad and whatnot. So it started as that, but at a certain point, you want to kind of find out what you missed out on. At least when I got out of the hobby, I don't know when exactly it would have been. Probably Neo-ish. Sometime in Neo, not sure when. But from there until up to the most recent, with the X and Y stuff that I saw as it came out, I wanted to go back. I wanted to take a look at it. I want to know what happened over the years. How are there 90? I think there was close to 90 sets at the time. Maybe 80 when I got back in. And there's probably close to 100 now. Someone can leave the actual number in the description, or not in the description, in the comments. But yeah, a huge part of my fun in the hobby was going back and looking at all those sets, and that's why I want to collect one of every English card and have master sets of everything all the way through. The stuff I missed out on is just as fun to me as the stuff that I was around for. So. Dragon Warrior says, unpopular opinion. Anyone who doesn't like a card or set because they are hard to grade doesn't actually appreciate the card or the set, but only the money the PSA 10s would bring in. I guess so. I mean, I don't really have any appeal in grading. It's nice when cards don't come out of the packs folded in half, but I don't really care if it looks like a 10 or not, or if it's hard to get a 10. That's not something that keeps me up at night because I don't grade cards. I don't see the reason behind it. Disclaimer: this does not excuse TPC from making low quality cards. It's almost 2021. There should not be this many issues with current print quality. So, there have been some very bad conditions coming straight from the factory, straight out of packs in 2021. I think that's largely to do with the fact that they're trying to pump out as much volume as possible, where they're trying to keep up with the demand, especially on set releases before everyone forgets about the most recent set and is on moving on to the next thing. So saying that there shouldn't be that many issues with current print quality, I don't know necessarily if the print quality has diminished any, but certainly at the rate that they're going now, it has. There's also an issue with the fact that it's third-party companies that are still making this, so it's not like one company did it the entire time and can improve and have it down absolutely perfect at this point. You also have to keep in mind that most people that are buying the cards don't care or don't expect a PSA 10 straight out of the pack every time. I don't know. Most people, the cards are not meant to be graded. They're not making the cards to be graded PSA 10 every time. If they were, the cards would be much more expensive, and that's just not what they're aiming for. Like, most customers are happy as long as it's in reasonable shape, and I would guess that anything that's coming out of a pack, with exceptions, obviously, is going to be an 8 or higher. So to expect anything beyond that is a little silly, and there's always going to be some quality control issues as long as it keeps shifting between different locations. They're printed at different locations by different companies, and then I guess some of the materials even seem like they're a little bit different depending on print runs and everything else. KingBoo64 says paying thousands more for a black label is incredibly stupid. I would agree. So is paying more for a BGS 10 or PSA 10 over a 9. Also agree. Paying tens of thousands of dollars just to not have a tiny dot on the corner of a tiny scratch. So sometimes that doesn't even mean anything. Your 9 might be the same as a 10. You might crack a 9 and it goes to a 10. You might crack that 10 and it might go to a 9. So within that area, I think this is mostly just people want to have a 10 on it. Or if you're reselling, I guess, then you want to have the best possible grade, and black label is just an exaggeration of that. So that's where the price comes from. Crystal Ho-Oh says, I prefer thin stamps to thick stamps. They look cleaner. So I don't think I prefer one over the other. Overall, I kind of wish that they just had one stamp. It's not my favorite variation. And even like the gray stamps and stuff like that, just it's too obscure or too minute of a detail to really matter to me. So Quachancy, Modern is criminally underrated. XY and Black White I was not a fan of. Sun and Moon started to get better. Sword and Shield on the right track, and the texture is incredible. I think so too. I like Sun and Moon. Sword and Shield, I think XY and Black and White were fine. It's crazy how much more is going into these newer sets in terms of rarity and everything else. Set size just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In the past, I've thought there are too many hits per box, that it ruins the excitement of big pulls. I now believe otherwise. If the Pokemon Company International can stop being lazy on generic, indistinguishable full art versus them, I will resume buying a box of every new set, which I stopped around 2012 because I couldn't stand the black and white era holo pattern. JK, I love Modern. I will be buying regardless. I was going to say, I remember Quachancy opening a ton of Modern in recent days. One thing I do wonder is if holos are overshadowed by ultra rares, why not have them get a higher pull rate? At first I thought getting rid of regular rare holos was a good solution. Now I wonder if we've gone from 1 in 18 as an ultra rare pull to 1 in 6 over the years. Why are we still stuck on 1 in 3 as the holo rare? This should be changed so fewer packs are dead rares. Yeah, maybe, but I don't know. I think it gets weird with some of the newer sets where if you have too many holos, then it ends up hard to pull holos because there's only so many per box. And then if there's too few rares, then you end up with the same rares over and over again. But sometimes when there's a lot of rares in a set, it seems pretty balanced. So, all right. Quachancy says, my ideal box pull rate, 36 packs, 18 rares, 12 rare hollows, 4 super rare, 2 ultra rare, 0.33 secret rare. So this would work, but the only thing is you'd have to change the way sets are built out right now, because if you have 0.33 chance at a secret rare with the amount of secret rares that there are right now, you would the secret rares would be so exceedingly hard to acquire that it's already really bad right now in terms of acquiring a full set, at least by opening. But to bump it up like that, even singles right now, just with the amount of secret rares to complete modern sets in the late Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield up until this point is absolutely insane. All right, this is not an unpopular opinion, but I felt like I should include it. Rip Guy Fawkes has a nice little display here and says, we are currently living in a bizarro timeline where the less rare version of a card looks better than its rare version. Regular holo rare Pokemon V have better artwork than ultra rare Pokemon V. Ultra rare Pokemon VMAX have better artwork than rainbow rare Pokemon VMAX. I would agree. I think Sun and Moon should have been the end of the hyper rares, the rainbow rares. I know people still like them, but it's a little out of control, especially now with the full art trainers that have them. So here we see the curse of the kind of lackluster full arts compared to the original Vs. And then we have the VMAXs compared to the rainbows. And yeah, I would have to agree. Column 1, column 3 are definitely easier and better to look at. But if you tack on some extra rarity to this and this, people are going to want those more. And the value is going to reflect that. All right, Tap says, unpopular opinion, we need a new, completely infeasible rarity. For 14 years, Gold Stars have been unmatched in terms of overall rarity and packs. No, not really if you're going by one particular pull rate on a single card. As we've already discussed in this video, when there's stuff that's like 1 in 500 or 1 in 700 packs, I don't think there's any lack of challenge there. I don't want to be able to buy a booster case and completely finish the set. Well, good news, because you definitely cannot. I don't know when the last set that you'd actually be able to do that. Probably not, especially if you're considering reverse rares. There's some of the XY and even like black and white sets that you'd probably get pretty close, and you might even get all the secret rarity cards, but at this day and age, I don't think there's anything Sun and Moon or anything. There's definitely nothing Sun and Moon and nothing Sword and Shield that you would get a complete set if you're ignoring the reverses. If Pokemon wants to throw some ultra shiny secret rare Charizard in every set nowadays, at least have the odds crush your dreams. I mean, there's no point in that. Like, they're not gonna. I shouldn't say that, because it seems like it's on the upward trend of being harder and harder to pull. So if they're gonna have something like 1 in 10,000 packs or something absolutely insane, and that's the only way you can get that card, I don't know. At that point, you're doing like signatures on the card and some kind of like Charizard skin patch instead of like a jersey patch. I'm tired of seeing a dozen copies of the rarest card open on the first day of release just within my little friend group. I don't know how many cards your friend group is opening and how little it is, but they're either getting very lucky or you're considering the fact that you're going to see them posted online everywhere, but that's just the amount of product that's being opened. That has nothing to do with the difficulty of pulling those. Maybe your friends are lying to you and saying they're opening one case to get the whole set, but I can assure you they're not. I want Pokemon to do me dirty and make me cry trying to find some ultra rare 1 in 100 plus seeded card. I don't know if this is like 1 in 100 plus in terms of like boxes. I don't think anyone wants to do that. I don't know. That's you might be an outlier. Maybe you have the bankroll to open a pallet of booster boxes. But at that point, I can almost assure you that you're going to be bored of opening it, looking for that one card that might not even be in there. With the rise of God packs in the Japanese TCG, I think the Pokemon Company Incorporated should bring something of the sort to the US UK. I don't think it's really necessary. I mean, it would make it more exciting if you actually hit one, but at the same time, do they need it? Probably not. No matter what is in the actual pack, people's reactions are always the same. It's amazing. Feeling only getting inner 11-year-old can truly appreciate. I guess. I don't know. Just open more packs. Pretend it's a God pack. King Boo 64 says Snom is a terrible Pokemon and Wooloo isn't good either. I like Snom. I think Wooloo is sort of one of those Pokemon that's near the early game that isn't that exciting, but kind of necessary to be there. Some people like Wooloo. Not one of my favorite, but Snom is probably one of my favorite from Sword and Shield. Blue Label Mew says Hidden Fates is not that great, and Modern Charizard investing is a noob trap. So, I would agree that Hidden Fates isn't that great, mostly because I like a larger actual set and not just entirely chase shinies. For me personally, I'd rather any of the main sets to these mini sets in general, but that's just my take on it. Modern Charizard investing is a noob trap. So, it can be certainly a noob trap, and you got to be a little bit careful with that. When something comes out, it's going to be at its highest value, especially if it's Charizard, a Chase Charizard. In this day and age, when it comes out, is going to be much more expensive than it's going to be once the market cools off. And once it rotates out and it's no longer the new shiny Charizard. New shiny thing Charizard. So, I mean, you gotta be careful with that. A lot of modern stuff, a lot of modern chase. So right now, we have the alternate arts, which are the new shiny thing. At one point in time, other things were the new shiny thing. So if you look at like the really fancy secret rares, the Alakazam comes to mind with the Umbreon on it and whatever. I don't know how much that was when it came out, but I'm sure when that was the new exciting thing, it was hundreds of dollars, and then had dropped down. I think it was $10 at one point in time. So might not be that extreme with some of the difficulty to pull. There were also only a couple of secret rares in those sets, so keep that in mind. But typically, new stuff, new exciting stuff, new chase is going to go down in value. Everything, for the most part, is going to go down in value. And once it's a generation or two old, it'll typically be at its lowest and then slowly start to go up in value. At least for the most part. When you take out any crazy events like the Rones, that's pretty much the trend. Appleton is the best new Pokemon. Its shiny card is also one of the best cards in Shiny Star V. I'm not really keen on the Apple Drags, but I know there's a lot of people that like them. All right. Miralamon says, here's some of my unpopular opinions. Grimer is an amazing Pokemon, and Muck is so much fun to use in the games. Drag plus Minimize is a disgusting duo. I've never played Muck in the games. I think Grimer and Muck are good Pokemon. Classics at the least. Jolteon is one of the lamest evolutions. I would disagree. I think Jolteon's cool. Lapras is the most adorable Pokemon ever. I definitely don't think so. I don't even know if we went with adorable Pokemon tier list, if it would even make the top 100. Arceus is better than Mew. I disagree. I like Mew. I hate Blastoise. It's so lame and sucks to use in the games. So I can see like not preferring Blastoise, but it's weird to. I think it's weird to hate Blastoise. It's a little bit extreme of an opinion. We have a deleted member saying Mewtwo is such a drama queen. Maybe he's just a drama queen because of the fact that you can hear him in the movies. Maybe that's why. Maybe all Pokemon are like that. They're all drama queens. TFGH says, I didn't like the amazing rares at 2 to 3 per box. They were far too common and didn't give the chase that collectors want. So the problem with what you want is there's no other version of amazing rares. So they can't just make them one in a case or something like that for playability reasons. It's just not justified unless they had some other version. I think people overestimated how special amazing rares were. Maybe based on the name, they should have been more amazing than what they actually were. But they're something similar to like a Prism Star or whatever. It's just like a mini gimmick within the sets or within a few sets, like break cards or anything like that. And they're not meant to be amazingly rare, even though the name might imply that. They're just different versions of cards to spice up the set, other than the top end of the set itself. So Johnny Mucho says Hoenn has the best starter lineup in the franchise. I'd have to think about this, but I'd say probably the Gen 2 starters are my favorite. If I had to, like, I'm not really much of a starter person. I usually don't even use the starters throughout the game. But if I had to pick, I think Gen 2 is my favorite in terms of if I had to use all three. Maybe different if I got to pick one out of any gen. Chroma. All right. Not sure if this was said yet, but I strongly feel that the holo on almost all WotC rares really takes away from the artwork on the cards. The vast majority of WotC rares across all sets that have holo and non-holo versions look drastically better in their non-holo version. So I think early holos, just for the most part, the entire background or most of the entire background was just meant to be holo. You're supposed to know that it's a holo. Maybe they just didn't have the technology or didn't feel the need to do what some of the modern holos do, where you can see the background better. It needs to be more pronounced. Maybe the ink is a little bit more prominent on the newer ones, or there's certain areas other than just the Pokemon itself where it isn't, the holo doesn't show through, so it gives it a little bit of a better contrast. And I would kind of agree. I like backgrounds just as much as I like the Pokemon. Pokemon in the background, extra super bonus points. The more going on in the artwork, the better. And just having a Pokemon with nothing in the background is sort of bland. Even if the Pokemon is drawn or created in an absolute amazing fashion, I still want to see something going on in the background with said Pokemon. Way Too Slow Bro says Steam Siege is a good set. So I think we've determined that Steam Siege is actually a good set. We've seen that maybe 7,000 times at this point. I think we can confirm it. Sizor Kick says, I don't care about the grade of a card beyond what PSA considers a 6. Basically, if it's not ripped or folded in half, I will love it. Charizard is overrated. Blastoise for life. So I would say that my standard, or what I would like to collect, is higher than that. But anything that comes out of the pack, with the odd exception, which is usually around an 8, is fine by me. I think that's optimal condition for price. If you can settle for 6s and less, and it doesn't bother you, then you're going to save a ton of money. Charizard is overrated. I think most people know that, even Charizard fans. Blastoise for life. I would, again, Venusaur life. King Boo 64 says Expedition Mew looks awful. I would disagree. I know I've heard many times that people are like, oh, it's just a fetus. No, it's Mew. It's not a fetus. Last one. All right, we got a big one here. Zorloth says PSA should stop grading modern cards, all modern cards, not just Pokemon. My reasoning for this, 80% of the backlog was modern cards. So, I mean, should they stop that? Should it be just because you don't want to grade modern cards doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't want to? They have just as much of a right to submit them as you do, and whether they submit a folded in half modern Pidgey or a Charizard from base set or whatever, it doesn't matter. If they want to send them in, they can send them in. If everyone wants to send them in at the same time, then that's kind of what you end up with. It'll clear out eventually, and we'll end up with junk slabs for days. It's ridiculous to grade modern cards, especially those that are still in print or recently in print. I mean, you could say the same thing about older cards when they came out, but you'd be paying a fraction of the cost to grade them that you are now. So are too many people grading modern cards? Maybe. Is that going to affect the price? It almost certainly will, especially when you have as much as is being sold and opened right now. I'm sure you're going to see a huge spike or a huge number of high graded modern cards. Stop grading modern cards entirely. They're not going to do that. It makes money. Raise the cost of grading modern cards so significantly that it deters the vast majority of people from submitting them. Well, joke's on you. They raised the price on everything. Have separate grading pools for modern and vintage cards. So, I mean, at that point, you're going to create two separate companies. And with the amount that's going on recently, I don't think this is really going to solve anything. Because what are you going to have, like, the experts that are grading the older stuff? What if somebody wants to submit both and they got to make two separate submissions for their old stuff and their new stuff? I don't know. Doesn't really work that way. I know it would be great for everyone that's trying to submit older stuff and not modern and is anti-modern, but that's what you deal with. I think just take a seat, and unless you really think that you're going to grade and flip things right away, wait for the market to cool off, wait for the backlog of graded cards to chill out, and then have another go at it if you're keeping the cards. And even if you're sending them in right now, if it's going to take you a year to get your cards back, the market might die down, and you would have been better off selling the card before submitting it. So I think we've seen that a little bit with the with some of the WotC stuff, with the evolution stuff for sure. It's a mess out there. Take care of each other. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys next time.